I think that Sojourn members have been so, my term is programmed, maybe educated, that what did they talk about? We need to talk about action steps. What are we going to do when we go back home? So we're the only group that said, we're going to do some action when we get home. And I don't know who it was that said we need to have a rally against issue 1 because that's not democratic. And then they said, I think maybe it was John, they said we need to have a Teach the Truth event. And Teach the Truth we became acquainted with because of Heather Smith, who's in the back, who has a Teach the Truth shirt on. But they decided a Teach the Truth event geared towards educators. So I'm going to turn it over to Brittany. And I apologize for speaking, Brittany. It wasn't on the agenda, but you got this.
Well, I was going to say my name is Brittany, but she said that already. I'm a member of Mahoning Valley Sojourn to the Past, and, well, she basically stole my welcome. In Mississippi at a leadership summit, John Rhodes, who's right here, thought a Teach the Truth rally would be a great idea. He remembered that Ohio currently has bills in circulation that are targeting education that will prevent teachers from being able to teach the truth, similarly to what Florida is doing. These bills are dangerous. They intentionally serve the purpose of preventing kids from getting the proper education they need to be well informed on their history, and will also make them grow into less empathetic adults who in turn are creating these bills. These bills are a clear gateway to something greater and hateful, and we need to not only reject their very idea, but be willing to actively tell our legislation that we don't need them or want them.
Yes.
So, as she already said, stole my introduction, my name is John Rhodes, and I'm a member of Mahoning Valley Sojourn to the Past, and I'm a rising freshman at Emory University in Atlanta. And today I'm going to be talking about some of the specifics of the bills that are currently in the Ohio State Legislature and why they are dangerous to our schools. Currently in the Ohio General Assembly, House Bills 322 and 327 are making their way through the Ohio House of Representatives. These bills are meant to whitewash history and prevent a balanced and accurate teaching of racism in America. Both primarily consist of lists of ideas that the bills forbid from being taught in schools. Over the course of this speech, I will list these forbidden concepts and explain why these prohibited ideas are necessary in a well-rounded education. Number 1, members of one race cannot and should not attempt to treat others without respect to race. Here, the bill is asserting the notion that race has little importance in one's experience and identity. However, if we know that discrimination has been perpetrated against specific racial groups in numerous facets of American life, then we also know that experience and identity can vary greatly based on one's race. Therefore, we should not seek to ignore race, but acknowledge and seek understanding of our differences and how they inform our worldview. Ban concept 2. An individual, by virtue of the individual's race or sex, bears responsibility for action committed in the past by other members of the same race or sex. Here the bill appears to merely oppose the idea that every member of a race is guilty of the actions committed by one member. However, this specific prohibition can be easily broadly interpreted to prevent educators from teaching that we all bear responsibility for rectifying the injustices of the past. This provision of the bill is worded ambiguously enough that local opponents of teaching a nuanced view of race relations in America can use state law as a means of preventing students from being imparted with the duty to address current problems related to the long-lasting effects of historical discrimination. Ban concept 3. An individual should feel discomfort, guilt, anguish, or any other form of psychological distress on account of the individual's race or sex. Firstly, this provision lumps discomfort together with guilt and anguish when the three are not at all the same. My freshman English teacher taught us that if you're always comfortable, then you're not growing. Discomfort can mean that you're growing as a person and encountering topics and questions that you're unfamiliar with. Secondly, discomfort is natural and to be expected for young white people who are coming to terms with the racial injustices of our country. As I grew in my knowledge of American history, of American racism, I experienced a certain level of discomfort as I grappled with the fact that people of my demographic had committed terrible injustices throughout much of American history. Just because a topic like American racism is uncomfortable doesn't mean that it isn't important or worth teaching our students. Instead, it is an opportunity for students to grow as American and global citizens. Banned concept 4. Meritocracy or traits such as a hard work ethic are racist or sexist or were created by a particular race or sex to oppress another race or sex. Here, the bill ignores the fact that American meritocracy was an unfulfilled promise for members of non-white communities and that it spent decades masking a racist and sexist status quo. For generations, many white people believed that in America, an individual's social and economic upward mobility was determined solely by merit and hard work. In reality, however, numerous racist and sexist barriers made it much harder for people of color and women to achieve professional success. Thus, this provision, which denies the flawed nature of American meritocracy, prevents educators from providing a nuanced perspective on America's meritocratic shortfalls. Ultimately, these dangerous bills underscore the importance of teaching the truth in our classrooms. If our students grow up with a strong understanding of America's complex history of triumph and injustice, then we will be well on our way to a populace which does not elect lawmakers who seek to sanitize history. Thank you.
On. Hi everyone.
Hi.
My name is Natalia McCrae. I am currently a third-year student at Youngstown State University. Thank you all for coming out today. We really appreciate it. We need more educators and we need more people here to support us. So why are we here today? We are here to teach the truth. Why are we here today? Because some politicians and Americans want to ban books teaching about racism, slavery, and oppression. Why are we here today? Because DeSantis decided that Florida students should be taught that slavery was beneficial to the enslaved, when instead we should be talking about how white people and America as a whole benefited from slavery. So here we are yet again. Here we are yet again. Time after time, we see political agenda pushed at the expense of Black Americans. They say the enslaved overall benefited from slavery. So we're going to ignore the fact that Black families were separated from their loved ones. We're going to ignore the fact that Black fathers were separated from their wives and children, which ultimately, even now, led to the demise of Black families. We are going to neglect the fact that slavery separated America. Africans, before they were here, were kings and queens. We had our own culture. We had our own language. We had our own ways. We didn't have to be colonized how they seen fit. We didn't have to benefit from anyone else. We were used and abused. They, the enslaved, were used and they were abused. Let's be hypothetical. If Blacks were to have benefited from slavery, tell me this. Why did they tell the enslaved, look man, you got some great skills. We love the hard work that you're putting in. We love your dedication, but you're gonna work for free. We love everything that you're doing for us. We've taught you all so much, but we're gonna separate you guys. You guys are better separated than together. Look, man, you got some great skills. You learned a lot. You know, you're very successful, but we aren't gonna hire you. You are competition. You are our competition. You're beneath us. Teach the truth. Don't teach your truth. Don't Don't teach the half truth. Teach the whole truth.
Amen.
Thank you.
Amen.
Hi everyone. Can everyone hear me okay, or should I just wait a few moments till the bus goes?
Wait, we can hear you.
All right. Hello. My name is Maya Pierce. I am a member of Sojourn to the Past, and I am a senior at YSU. I will be graduating in December with a major in social work. I chose this career because I want to be a helping hand in my community. But my main goal is for little black boys and little black girls to know that they can be somebody. I am the representation of what they can be if they simply try. Not only does it take determination, but it takes support. The support of a caring and loving community. Having someone who believes in you does something good to your spirit. Firstly, I want to thank Mrs. Pennywells for her support. She helped me realize what I can be by taking me on Sojourn to the Past. As many of you may know, Sojourn to the Past is a non-profit organization that allows students to go down south to the civil rights sites and feel a part of that history in person. Sojourn to the Past changed my entire life. I learned so many things. I met so many beautiful people. I came back from the trip on fire with passion because of the history I learned. I was ready to change. I was ready to make change. And I am forever grateful for this opportunity of education. But I am deeply disappointed. I'm disappointed because I feel as if students, but especially black students, are being robbed of their education. They are being robbed of their history. And it is not fair. I will never understand why our history isn't taught to the fullest extent. And please do not use the excuse of there isn't enough time, because we make time for things that we feel are important. And this is important. Knowing who we are is very important. The only thing children mainly know about is Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, or Malcolm X. And I'm frustrated about it. Although the journey of Sojourn was amazing, and I just feel as if I shouldn't have to go on a trip that teaches me all about my history. I believe everyone should go on this trip because of the impact that it had on my life. But is school not where I gain my knowledge? I'm confused. Teach the truth. Educators, use your voice. Speak up about this. Or are you fearful of what black students can be if they knew who they were? And if not, prove it. At times, school is where some students get most love. So the importance of representation and respect is high. Affirm your students, especially your black students, of how loved they are. You can also affirm them by sharing their history. This will encourage them to be more than what they are called by society, because they will actually have something to see that they are more. Our black students are more than guns, they are more than gangs, and they are more than violence. Our black students are creators. Our black students are doctors. Our black students are lawyers. Our black students are engineers. Our black students are entrepreneurs. And if you cared, you would let them know that they are. I will leave you all with this. I am a proud, young black woman. I am educated. I am talented. And I am strong. I know this not only because of my ancestors, but because of who fought for me before they knew me, because they knew who I could be. I am the representation of the work of Fannie Lou Hamer, Henrietta Lacks, Myrlie Evers, Ella Baker, Dorothy Cotton, Joanne Robinson, Coretta Scott King, Polly Murray, Angela Davis, Mae Mallory, Mamie Till, Minnie Jean Brown Trickey, Elizabeth Eckford, There are so many black women who put their lives on the line just for black people to have a fighting chance. And we aren't even being taught about them. How dare this go on? Educators, I know these times as of right now are questionable, and you are becoming very weary, and you are doing all that you believe is necessary to get everything that you deserve when it comes to your careers. And I get that, and I am not mad at that. But please use that same energy on your students, especially your black students. Show up for them. Fight to teach them the truth. Or are you fearful of what they will become when they find out how powerful, outspoken, and outstanding they truly are? Teach them their truth. Would you not want to know yours? As Mrs. Williamson would say, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Diane Gonda, and I am a teacher in the classroom. And I'm so sorry that I had to follow the wonderful Sojourn students. But you'll just have to grin and bear it. When I was asked to speak, a few things came to my mind. The first was, there was an article in the New York Times a few years ago that talked about Claudette Colvin. Claudette Colvin was the precursor to Rosa Parks. And Claudette said that day, when she made that choice to be arrested, she remembers thinking of her English teacher's lesson about understanding and taking pride in her history. What a teacher. Then I also thought about Brian Stevenson. And he is a proponent of reconciliation. That we are not going to be able to move on until we have a reconciliation. Now, it's worked in other countries, it's worked in Germany, and it's worked in South Africa. But in order to have a reconciliation, you have to face the truth. You have to face the facts. And yes, John, you were right. Sometimes those facts are extremely uncomfortable. That doesn't mean that one demographic is better than another demographic. That does not mean that today's descendants have to share some kind of guilt, but it has to be faced. We should all be horrified, no matter who we are, about how humanity has treated, how humans have treated other humans in terrible, terrible ways throughout history, from ancient times. No matter who we are, no matter who we descend from, we should remember and we should be horrified so that it doesn't happen again. Another reason why we need to teach the truth is that in my classrooms, I try to bring in the history of our history, but one that has affected my students the most, because there's not two different histories. We all share the same histories. But I get pushback from my students. They tell me, Miss Gonda, racism is over. That's so old. That's so outdated. Why, what are you talking about? Then I pull up the clip of, and correct my pronunciation, Sojourners, Ahmaud Arbery, where he was running from his life, and they had it all spelled out, and you heard the 911 call right on the tape, and it said, a black man is running. No racism anymore? It doesn't, we've had so many incidents that have happened, but we have to work harder. We have to work harder because with social media, with the coronavirus upset, we have to keep working to give our students their history. And we should all say it's okay to be disgusted and uncomfortable about events that have happened throughout history so that we don't do them again.
Really good. Really good.
Right. Okay.
Hello, I'm Heather Smith. I'm a technology teacher at Kirkmere. I was at the middle school, RAC Middle School for the last 4 years. This is my 5th year in the district. I started doing stuff with Zen Education and the Teach Truth Project, like maybe 3 years ago, and I was a little afraid. And after I saw the Sojourn presentation, I knew I had to reach out to Penny Wells because she was my girl. So the students have been with me and trying to do these Teach Truth events. And I went on Sojourn this past year, learned a lot more, and it was a great experience. So I'm like so excited that the kids had this idea, that they wanted to do this, and to let the teachers know that they want the truth no matter what lawmakers are saying. So I wrote mine up. I hope to introduce some local history that maybe some of you are less aware of, and because I like to dig into my local history. That's how I learned how to teach the truth, and then I just let it, I don't know, books kind of just come to me. It's weird. Okay, so welcome educators, students, and community members. I'm here today as an educator to proclaim that when it comes to teaching the truth, no law will stop me. The truth is, it's hard to teach the truth when we all don't know it ourselves. What truth are you seeking? How do you know the credibility of your sources? Are you listening to voices that feed your deeply held beliefs with junk food because they verify what you already think? Or do you practice strong sense critical thinking skills, question everything, including your deeply held beliefs? Presently, Republican lawmakers are pushing legislation that would prohibit teachers from teaching an accurate account of our history. This is nothing new. Historically, Black Studies has always been under attack from emancipation to the Red Scare in the 1950s, leading up to freedom schools in the summer of 1964, and into 2020, with fears of teaching critical race theory and indoctrinating our children. All this legislation does is confuse the public, including teachers and other school personality, what they should and should not teach in the classroom. They claim teachers want to indoctrinate students, but the indoctrination has already been happening for too long in its education that we seek. Carter G. Woodson. Okay, so it's one of my most recent books I wrote, Carter G. Woodson. He writes, the oppressor has always indoctrinated the weak with this validation, I changed the word there, of the crimes of the strong. If you are in control of a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his actions. When the overall gist of our history classes is that the U.S. is the good guy, always progressing, there's no need to take action. This is the part that those in power don't want changed. He writes, these misguided teachers ignore the fact that the race question is being brought before black and white students daily in their homes, in the streets, through the press, and on the rostrum. How then can the school ignore the duty of teaching the truth while these other agencies are playing up the falsehood? You can replace the word race with gender or climate, all these things they want us to leave out of the classroom. Apparently, who we are and the environment in which we live is too controversial to bring up in school, but please get to know your students. He later writes, the experience of college instructors show that racial attitudes of the youth are not easily changed after they reach adolescence. Teachers of elementary and secondary schools giving attention to this interracial problem have succeeded in softening and changing the attitude of children whose judgment has been so hopelessly warped by the general attitude of the communities in which they have been brought up. By the way, this all came from his book that was written like almost 100 years ago. Woodson writes, in our own particular history, we would not dim one bit the luster of any star in our firmament. We would not learn of George Washington, first in war, first in peace, and first in the hearts of his countrymen. But we would learn something also of the 3,000 black soldiers of the American Revolution who helped to make this father of our country possible. We would not neglect to appreciate the unusual contribution of Thomas Jefferson to freedom and democracy, but we would invite attention also to two of his outstanding contemporaries, Phyllis Wheatley, the writer of interesting verse, and Benjamin Banneker, the mathematician, astronomer, and advocate of world peace plans set forth in 1793 with the vital principles of Woodrow Wilson's League of Nations. We would be in no way detract from the fame of Perry on Lake Erie or Jackson at New Orleans in the second struggle with England, but we remember the gallant black men who assisted in winning these memorable victories on land and sea. We would not cease to pay tribute to Abraham Lincoln as the savior of our country, but we would ascribe praise to the 178,000 black men who had been mustered into service of the Union before it could be preserved, and who by their heroism demonstrated that they were entitled to freedom and citizenship. To teach the truth, we must be open to learning more about it. Our education was not designed to teach us the whole story. I do not blame teachers for not knowing more of our black past. It's been historically left out of the curriculum and pushed out by those in power on purpose to control our thinking. This is why media literacy skills are so very important. Peter Clark. This guy. America's first black socialist. Okay. All right, this is where I get local. Okay. He fought against school integration because he wanted to protect the jobs of black teachers and principals, and he did this at a time that most black people were fighting for integration and not everything else. But he knew integration would eliminate many black teachers and principals from their respected positions. Today, roughly 7% of our teachers identify as black, and our schools remain racially and socioeconomically segregated. His daughter, Dr. Consuelo Clark, lived in Youngstown. She had a successful private practice for black and white patients and opened up kindergartens in Youngstown. Her husband was W.R. Stewart, Mahoning County's former black state representative. She had repeatedly accused him of abuse, and so he put her up in an insane asylum, even though her sister had gotten affidavits from doctors declaring her sane. At the time, if men could foot the bill, they could lock their wives up. So this is local history. The laws around impact us and they impact our lives. Be aware of the laws and what legislation is being pushed. I pledge to teach the truth no matter what lawmakers say. Use your voice and take action. Silence is violence, and non-violence means taking action. If you are a teacher here today, keep an open mind when learning new things. If you haven't dug into our black past much, I would encourage you to dig in. If you are a student here today, question everything. Use the key questions to critically think about the world around you. Media, billboards, textbooks, books, magazines, music, clothes, memes, TVs, commercials, news, all of it. If you are a parent here, encourage and support your teachers to teach the truth. Encourage your children to question things to develop a strong thinking skills for themselves. Everyone here is a teacher and a student who deserves to know the truth. Make sure you vote in November. Thank you.
Does anybody want to say anything?
Okay. Hi. I'm Lily Snyder. I go to Cheney High School and I'm a sophomore. I went on Sojourn to the Past this year. Yeah. Anyways, I've had two specific teachers that stood out to me because they taught the truth. I'm not gonna name them just because, but I will tell you about some of the things they, have taught me and other students about. One of them was one of my 9th grade teachers, and she taught us about Black history and really our history, but specifically the March on Washington and the Children's March and a bunch of other very important events that just don't get covered enough in our history books. And then another teacher, this was my 8th grade teacher. She was my history teacher, which I should mention my 9th grade teacher was an English teacher, so she was going out of her way to teach us about this stuff when she didn't have to. But my 8th grade history teacher, she also taught us about things that weren't necessarily in the books that we were supposed to be learning about. She taught us about how Christopher Columbus was not this great man. He killed and raped so many indigenous people. She taught us about like how Black people were still being treated in America, and she went out of her way to show us this, get people who were a part of these demographics and teach us about it. And I just want to say that we need more teachers like this, because I've had probably over 20 to 40 teachers in my school life, but I've only had 2 of them that really went out of their way to teach things that need to be taught. So thank you for listening to me. Sorry, I was kind of just rambling.
Anyone else? Going back to what John and Miss Gonda said, racism isn't gone, it's being normalized. Teaching oppression and racism happened isn't a bad thing. Let's look at Florida. We need to stop Ohio from normalizing this blatant behavior. Hitler also banned books and changed how curriculum was taught and welcomed it. Let's not welcome it. Let's stop being Florida 2.0. Let's not mimic the rise of Nazi Germany. Tell these people in charge we don't need them to create historically disinclined people who don't care about others. If you are a teacher, reject the possibility of even doing kids a disservice in the classroom by teaching them properly. If you want to support teachers, stand behind them when they choose to teach them properly. Thank you for coming.
I'd just like to thank everybody who's here, and Lily has some flyers if you've not gotten them. We have several events coming up, one of which is on the 28th of August. We're partnering with Warren, and there's going to be an event celebrating the 60th anniversary to the day of the March on Washington. Another is a counselor from Cleveland. Her name is Latoya Logan. She counsels young Black males who've suffered trauma. She will be speaking at St. John's Episcopal Church up the street here across from YSU at 7 o'clock on September 25th. I also urge you to come out and support Nonviolence Week. Come to the parade. Sign up for the 5-day Nonviolence Read, which is a flyer here for that. Come and hear the Simeon Booker Award for Courage. We're honoring 2 women who lost sisters. 2 are coming to speak, both of whom have lost sisters 60 years ago in the bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church. One of whom was out in the bathroom when her sister was killed, and she was partially blinded. We're also honoring locally Sister Ann, who ran the Dorothy Day House here, welcoming the homeless, feeding them dinner, giving them a place to take showers. She just recently retired. That's going to be on the 3rd, on October the 3rd. Yes, October the 3rd at the Tyler Starkville Center. Minnie Jane Brown Trickey, whom Maya referred to. She's always with us on the Sojourn journey until COVID hit. She will be here all week long, all week long. So meet her, because she is a spirit beyond spirit. So thank you all, appreciate your support, and appreciate your coming. Thank you.